The onions were already sizzling in the pan, and now it was the perfect time to lay out the thin slices of potato. I sat on the stool, rocking back and forth, for which Mom scolded me, saying I wasn't a child anymore and should stop fooling around. She looked exhausted, her greasy hair tied in a messy bun on top of her head. Her face was pale drawn. She wore a silly housecoat thrown over her nightgown. The old TV was on. A man in glasses was droning on about the economic situations of various countries, and a stern woman was arguing with him, pursing her lips in disapproval every time he said something absurd. Or at least, absurd in her eyes. I didn't care. Snow was falling heavily outside, but the kitchen was warm and peaceful. A yellow street lamp shone through the curtains. Mom smiled for the first time in ages, weakly, tiredly, but she smiled. She even told me about a dream she'd had. The oil in the pan hissed when she tossed in the potatoes, stirred them gently with a spoon, and nodded to herself in satisfaction. "What will we have with tea?" she asked, turning to me. I didn't get a chance to answer. A child's cry came from the bedroom at the end of the hallway, loud and desperate. I immediately frowned. So did Mom. She wiped her hands on a towel, crumpled it, and for some reason threw it angrily onto the table. "I'll be right back. Keep an eye on the potatoes," she muttered, disappearing down the corridor. I curled into a ball, trying to distract myself from the crying. It didn't work. Singing soon joined the crying, quiet and shaky. Only that could soothe what lay in the crib. It was my sister Anya who was crying, or rather, that's what my parents and everyone else called the creature. I couldn't bring myself to call it my sister, let alone use the name that didn't belong to it. No, it wasn't hatred. Here's the thing. Anya had been hyperactive, and somehow she ended up tipping a pot of boiling water onto herself. I wasn't home at the time. I'd stayed late at school to fix a bad math grade. When I came in and saw my father, half his hair turned from chestnut to white, I knew immediately something had happened. Mom stayed with Anya in the hospital for a long time. I wasn't allowed to visit them. They said I didn't need to see Anya like that. Dad didn't visit either for some reason. All the while they were away, I missed them terribly. Despite our age gap, Anya and I got along great. I used to pick her up from daycare, and if our parents weren't home, we'd eat together, drink tea. Then I'd do homework while she either ran around the apartment with Caesar, our cat, or, tired out, would pepper me with questions or chatter about what happened at daycare. I didn't listen closely, but I was happy that she was having fun. When Anya was first born, I was eaten up with jealousy and envy. But over time it faded. On the day Mom and Anya came back from the hospital, Caesar wouldn't let anyone near him. He even scratched Mom and then hid under the couch, hissing and refusing to eat. That was surprising. Caesar was usually calm and good-natured, but he'd turned into an aggressive animal. I tried in vain to lure him out from under the couch and earned a few deep scratches for my effort. I still wasn't allowed near Anya. They said the sight wasn't pleasant, even after treatment. "Mom, she just has burns," I said dismissively and headed to the room dimly lit. It would have been fine, except that dimness would never go away. The overhead light in my sister's room would never be turned on again. Someone lay on the bed, but judging by the silhouette, Anya had shrunk dramatically in size. The smell in the bedroom had changed too. It no longer smelled of baby soap and laundry detergent. It smelled like medicine. Sharp, acrid. But there was something else. Barely noticeable, but if you sniffed closely you'd catch it: rotting meat. Definitely rotting meat. "Anya, how are you?" I pushed aside the warning signs and came closer to the bed, cautiously sitting down next to the bundle of blankets. The bundle moved. I even heard a faint squeak. "Anya," I leaned in. From under the blankets, two brown eyes looked up at me, framed by thin, blistered eyelids, crusted with red, yellow scabs where the serum had dried. Below the eyes, just a rotting hole. No nose, no mouth. It was like everything below the cheekbones had been chopped off. I jumped off the bed and ran out into the hallway, slamming the door behind me. Mom peeked out from the living room, smiling faintly but happily. Well, but judging by how her face changed, no answer was needed. I locked myself in my room and didn't come out until dinner. I didn't want to look my parents in the eye, let alone say anything. Mom was beaming. Of course she was. Anya had been discharged. No more hospital walls 24/7. Dad was thrilled to have them both home. A picture-perfect family scene. We just finished eating when Anya started crying again. Mom quickly cleared the table and rushed to her. Dad offered to help, but Mom snapped that he should just wash the dishes instead. As I sat listening to the clinking of forks in the running water, I kept replaying what I'd seen in my sister's room. Could the burns really be that bad? I couldn't get those huge brown eyes out of my mind. Yes, Anya had brown eyes too, but they didn't feel like hers anymore. Like they belonged to someone, or something else. Time passed. According to my parents, Anya was getting better, and Mom could return to work. But Anya never left her room. At night, I sometimes heard the sound of bare feet slapping clumsily along the hallway floor, limping, sometimes even dancing. I could have blamed it on my parents getting up for water or the bathroom. Except I heard the steps when I was home alone. Just me, the cat, and that bundle in the bed. I couldn't call that thing my sister. I would lock my bedroom door, turn the key, and lie awake until morning. I didn't know where this fear had come from. After all, missing half your face, was that really a reason to stop loving someone? Dad started smoking again even though he'd quit long ago. More gray hairs appeared on his head, but I blamed it on the stress about Anya. Sometimes I heard my parents whispering, quiet, tense conversations that sounded more like arguments. Sometimes I thought, what if Mom went to the hospital with Anya, and the real Anya died there? What if someone else took her place? Something foreign, but at least not malicious. And so we lived. I shook with terror, stayed late at school, dodged all my parents' questions. After her shifts, Mom would run straight to Anya's room and stay there until she was too tired to stay awake. And I realized no one ever bought Anya ointments for her burns. No one changed her bandages. No one even took her to the hospital. She would cry whenever Mom shifted her attention to me or anyone else, and Mom would drop everything and run to her. Someone else. That thought came to me again when I came home from school one evening and saw the creature they called Anya effortlessly tearing off the cat. Caesar was definitely dead. You don't live long with your crushed in. Mom wasn't home, probably at the store. "What are you doing?" I gasped. My backpack slipped from my shoulders to the floor. The creature turned to look at me with those same eyes. On its skinny, blistered body was a light cotton nightgown, the one Mom had sewn for Anya. It was soaked in ooze, clinging to the deformed body in places. There was no hair on its head. Why, I don't know. The skin on its skull looked like a shriveled apricot soaked in boiling water. Its fingers were twisted, almost fused together. Its legs were crooked. It let out a guttural sound and hobbled toward me with arms outstretched, as if to hug me. But what it really wanted, I never found out. Just then, the front door lock clicked. Dad came home early. He'd been sent home sick from work. When he saw what was left of Caesar, he sat down on the floor in silence. And in his eyes, I saw the same fear that had been haunting me. So he'd been thinking the same thing. That night, Mom didn't have a meltdown. Even though she'd loved Caesar dearly, she didn't even cry. When we told her Annie had done it, she ignored us. We buried the cat, but besides the lock, I also installed a homemade bolt on my bedroom door. One that could only be opened from the inside. Who would believe me if I told them? I was afraid of my own sister. The footsteps in the hallway at night grew more confident. A new sound joined them, a rustling like someone dragging a hand along the textured wallpaper. Rustle, rustle. Then on the floor, slap, slap. I bought earplugs. I'd learned to fall asleep while ignoring the fear, but now it was the sounds that made it impossible to rest. And the crying. Anya cried more often. Only, it didn't sound real. It was as if someone who didn't quite know how human children cry had pieced together a few similar noises and now played them on a loop. When I brought up my sister, Mom refused to talk. As for Dad, he just packed his things and left. Blocked Mom's number. A few days later, though, he sent me a new number, with a message I could reach out to him for anything, and a request. Not to tell Mom. There were just 3 of us left. Mom spent all her time with Anya, and if she focused on me, Anya would start crying. From a cheerful, loving woman, Mom slowly turned into someone I didn't recognize. Gloomy, stern, cold. She stopped bathing every day. The apartment fell into squalor. I tried to clean, but I was no good at it. Light bulbs burned out fast, and the hallway was filled with a persistent smell of rancid oil. On the wallpaper, I saw clear marks. Tiny handprints, like someone had dipped their palms in something greasy and then smeared them across the beige walls, leaving behind a strange abstract pattern. Then, one evening, a miracle, my sister was silent for a long time. We decided to fry some potatoes. I peeled and washed a few big ones while Mom chopped the onion. I thought maybe Anya had finally died, and everything would get better. I stirred the potatoes, set the kettle to boil, turned up the volume on the TV a little, and then I realized I couldn't hear anything. No crying. No Mom's lullabies. Curiosity ate away at me. I crept toward the bedroom. A faint light from the desk lamp spilled onto the old parquet floor in the hallway. Anya, or rather, the thing that wore her name, was sitting on the bed next to Mom. From the gaping, rotting hole where the lower part of her face used to be, a long tongue was protruding. On the end of the tongue was something like a suction cup, attached to Mom's stomach. Mom whimpered softly, wiped tears from her face with the sleeve of her robe, trying to soothe herself. The creature was feeding. Neither Mom nor it noticed me. At first, blood rushed to my face. I had to lean against the wall to stay upright. My mind was blank, but oddly enough, the fear was gone. Taking tiny steps, I tiptoed back toward the kitchen, doing my best not to make a sound. The kettle started whistling, and as I listened to that whistle, I suddenly knew what to do. I poured the boiling water into a pot, pulled on oven mitts so I wouldn't burn myself, and tucked one of the kitchen knives into the waistband of my pants, just in case. I ran to the bedroom, pot in hand, and kicked the door open. I poured the boiling water into a pot, pulled on oven mitts so I wouldn't burn myself, and tucked one of the kitchen knives into the waistband of my pants, just in case. I ran to the bedroom, pot in hand, and kicked the door open. No, stop. Mom screamed, leaping to her feet. The creature didn't manage to pull its tongue back in time. The boiling water splashed directly onto its bald head. Mom shrieked like both her legs had been caught in a bear trap. Not from pain, it hadn't touched her. Or maybe it had, but not physical pain. The creature howled, thrashed around. Skin peeled off its hairless head as it tried to stick it back on with those twisted little hands. I stepped back, dropped the pot on the floor. Beneath the shriveled skin, something black gleamed, but I didn't stop to see what. I lunged for Mom, grabbed her by the arm, and dragged her out of the apartment, grabbing our shoes along the way. But Mom slapped me hard, again and again, until my ears rang. Neighbors peeked out into the hallway at the noise but quickly ducked back inside. And then she went back in, back to the creature. As she opened the door, I heard the same crying. But louder now, much louder. I just sank to the cold floor, let the tears flow, then eventually went downstairs, ran across the street to the 24-hour store. I knew Dad's new number by heart. The kind store clerk let me use her phone. Needless to say, I never saw Mom again. Dad refused to talk about any of it. He said I wasn't ready yet. I didn't understand that at all. I was tormented. First by knowing that something was living in the room next to mine, something people called my sister, and then, later, by the guilt and fear of having run away. When I turned 18 and was about to move to another city for university, Dad arranged a kind of farewell dinner. And when Anya's name came up, Dad finally spoke. He couldn't vouch for everything he said. It was mostly retelling what Mom had told him. But I'd been right, Anya had really died. Only it wasn't boiling water or a tipped pot. Anya had been electrocuted because of Dad's negligence. She never sat still, she was always chasing some new adventure. And Mom, well, she must have snapped the moment she found out her daughter was gone. That's the only explanation for what came next. She went looking for someone, anyone, who could bring her little girl back. And she found someone. Some old crone in a remote village agreed to return the child, but only under one condition: the child wouldn't eat regular food. It needed to feed on flesh and blood. And to make the illusion more convincing, the body of the old child had to be fed to the new one. Then they needed to wait, to give it time to take root, and above all else they had to love it, nurture it, cherish it. Dad, crushed by guilt, would have agreed to anything. But eventually even he couldn't take it anymore. That's why he ran. Because it's terrifying, to live with something you can't even call human. Sitting on the train, watching my father's tired eyes and worn smile as he waved to me from the platform, I kept replaying everything he told me. A tall woman passed my seat with a little boy, whose face was wrapped in bandages all the way up to his eyes. I frowned. The woman, on the other hand, smiled kindly. Mother and son took seats at the far end of the carriage. That night, I woke to the sound of a child crying. It didn't sound natural. It was just like before, as if someone unfamiliar with how people, or children, cry had made a playlist of similar sounds, and now played them on a loop.